right, let's go ahead and jump into this. So let's see who is here. Looks like we have Luis. Luis, thanks for joining us. We'll see who else joins us. So today we're going to talk about an articulation point that just drives me crazy. So we'll see what this is. And Todd is heating the water. Not this time, believe it or not. I was actually adding a link in the description. So you guys, if you wanted to get some of these figures, I put the link in the description so you guys can get some of these awesome figures. So let me go ahead and do a quick sound check. Adding a link in the description so you guys, if you wanted to get some of these figures, I put the link in the description. All right, that sounds pretty good. All right, so hello, toe articulation fan. Yes, hopefully there's people on here that want to do some arguing and debating, and we'll talk about the toe articulation. So, as you guys know, many years ago, we would get action figures with some limited articulation, like the Star Wars action figures that just had, 6 points of articulation or 5 points of articulation, depending if you had the waist turn or not. And then, hold on a second, let me grab my original He-Man figure. I have one already sitting out right here. My Battle Armor He-Man. The Scorched Battle Armor He-Man. Scorched Battle Armor He-Man. See here, they had just very little articulation. But, it was actually made very cleverly. I actually love the way they did the articulation back in the 80s figures. Battle cool spring power like we've seen. Hey, somebody else has joined us. What is that? Provenach? Anyway, but what's cool about these figures is they actually hid the articulation very well. You can see the articulation is hidden in all the spots where the plastic has a natural break in the style of plastic. So we have, of course, the hip, the upper leg, the waist, the arms, and the head. And something really clever about the articulation about this particular figure is because they put it at an angle. As you raise the arms, they would go together. Now, the battle armor is a bad example because it's not as angled as the other ones. Let me find the original He-Man figure. The original! I got them in there backwards. I should just turn them around, do it right. Do it right, Todd. There we go. He's missing his pinky? It melted! This is the one I used for the fire, where I used Cobra Khan. I didn't realize I melted his pinky. I guess it got a little too hot for him. That is messed up. Sorry, He-Man. Didn't mean to melt your pinky off. No, I didn't even notice because he's had this shield on the whole time. The flame must have came around and melted his pinky on the back side. Wow. That's what I get for scorching my figures. Okay. Ooh. Let me get my box of remembrance. The box of remembrance. And in here I have the original He-Man. Dun dun dun. And you can see the angle here is not at 90 degrees to gravity. So as you lift his hands, they get smaller. And as you pull them down, whoop, they get wider. So this is really a cool feature because it adds an extra bonus to how far his hands are spread apart. So if you wanted him to hold something, you put his hands up higher and they get closer together, and you put his hands down lower and they get wider apart. So when you position him in the battle ram, for instance, to get his hands to the right spacing, you would just keep raising it up and down to get it just right so they'd fit. Let's get that battle ram out again. One of my favorite vehicles from forever ago. And come on out of there. Basically, if you hook his hand on there, notice it's not quite connecting. So you just tilt the body a little bit and now it's super tight in there. And so that's all you have to do is change the angle of the body and they get tighter as they go in. You can use this also if you want to pick up like an action figure and throw him. As you put his hands up, it becomes smaller so you can grab the figure better. And then as you put them down, they become wider, so you can grab the figure a different way. Like wrestling guys, you raise them up, and now he's got a pretty good grip on that figure because his angle of attack, or the angle of this, makes it smaller and then wider, smaller, wider, which was so revolutionary compared to other figures where where it was completely straight up and down. So how you raised them up and down didn't change the distance. Where this here you can see closer to his head, further away. Anyway, you guys get the gist. I just thought that was such a cool thing when I was a kid, being able to change his spacing in his hands by raising or lowering his arms. You're probably thinking, man, I didn't notice that. Yeah, I was kind of an observant kid when I was little. All right, so let's go ahead and put the figures of remembrance back away in the box of remembrance. The box of remembrance. Chink. All right, so then we had some figures that were just like hyper articulated in the late 70s and early 80s, like the original O-ring G.I. Joes and Micronauts. And you could see these here. They had so much articulation packed into one little figure. It was just crazy. Where you can see all the different movements, shoulders, everything else. You know, the elbows, of course, the knees, the upper part, the waist. I mean, you got a lot of... Now, of course, as they became more worn, they get kind of more flexible. So you would take and carefully pull the screw out and add some plastic wrap in there just to tighten it, to give you a little bit more. I didn't fix this figure, but you guys get the idea. So then we had those two types of figures, like the Star Wars figures, limited articulation, just 5 or 6 points. And then we had the super hyper articulated figures like Micronauts and G.I. Joes. So it's kind of funny, the different range. And then, of course, the He-Man figures came out, and they had the articulation. Then my wife one time got me, I don't have the figure anymore, I ended up selling it on Fleabay. And that was... we need the Origins Battle Ram. Oh, yeah, we do. My user ID is from the 80s film Condor Man. Oh, yeah, Condor Man. Yes. All right, so then we got the cool He-Man figures, which I, of course, you figured out, love these figures. And they had lots of cool muscles and everything else. But, again, not as much articulation as... the Micronauts, but more than Star Wars, because they had a rounded joint here that could do so much more than just the up and down legs. And again, the joints were made in such a way that they actually were, like I said, everywhere the plastic split. So all the joints were invisible and didn't have all these weird rivet holes and articulation points. So that was really cool. So now we come to today. And also, I was talking about my figure. Sorry about that. I lost track of what I was talking about. So my wife got me Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four, the Human Flame, Human Torch. And he had so much articulation. At first I thought it was really cool. I was like, that is a lot of articulation. And then I noticed I believe he had the toe articulation too. It's like, well, that's kind of weird. And so I started noticing this trend in other figures as well. This crazy toe articulation where the toes bend up. It's like, what? Now, if it's made right, which is kind of rare, this one here is made really good. It has a rounding to it, so you can you don't lose the aesthetic. But on the top, there's still kind of some weird cuts. So it doesn't quite work. But having the toe bend has a couple good features. One is whenever you kick someone, you don't want to ever kick with your toe. That's how you break your toe. You always want to kick with the ball of your foot. So this is great for those moves where you want to show someone using the ball of their foot kicking. Maybe don't quite bend them quite so far, but that's great for that. Another great feature is you want to pose these on your shelf and have them running. Having that toe be able to bend backwards is another cool feature. So don't get me wrong. There's it's not like it's totally useless, but there is enough uselessness about it. It's not that big of a deal. In fact, I think it ruins the aesthetic more than it actually helps because you can still just do a cool kick without having to bend the toe. There's a heel kick. Ooh! And even though this guy's a runner, you can still do some cool moves and just have him have his toe up on the end. You don't need to actually bend the toe. Now, if anybody was going to have toe articulation, you would think the Flash would, because he's always running, right? So if they're going to give someone toe articulation, he'd be the guy. But being he's got the giant monster feet, you can still do some cool Flash running moves. There we go. So even a figure that should have it, that doesn't have it, it doesn't ruin the aesthetic. It still looks okay, because I imagine that if they had a toe bend on this giant foot, that would just look weird. By the time you bent it, it would be so misformed. It would just be crazy daisy. All right, so let's take a look at Spooderman. Spooderman. Now, Spider-Man, I believe, needs to have toe articulation, because he's like super doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Spider-Man should be over-articulated in every form version they ever make him. He needs the ultimate amount of articulation, because he is doing some crazy moves all the time, spinning his webs, flying through the air. He's always contorted in some way, doing his cool web flying stuff. So Spider-Man, he gets a pass on this. He should have every articulation point possible that they've ever designed or created, because he is always, and sometimes he's just positioned on a flagpole up on some super tall building, just barely posing on some stupid little flagpole with his feet kind of tucked in. And if you want to mimic that, you got to have the ankles rock and the toes bend to grip around that little pole as he's standing on there. So yes, he's a pass. He gets to have all the articulation possible. Anything they design, he needs to have. So, and look at that, no pins. No pins! Oh, I love my no pin Spider-Man. So cool. I have another one that has pins, and I had to paint the inside a different color than the outside because it didn't match. But yeah, look at this. Even up here on the top, they have this articulation point, which is normally something I'm like, you don't need one up there for the back. But look at that. Way up on his back up there. So you can really get some crazy articulation. Yep, Louise, you're right. Spider-Man is mandatory. Thor got him. Let's see. Toe articulation of figures works for me if it's done correctly. Yes, not every toy line needs it. Look at Jada Street Fighter. They don't have it, and they're killing it with the articulation game. Nice. I'll have to check that out. So let's take a look at some figures that you guys know I really enjoy a lot. Classics. And Classics does not have a toe articulation, but they did add a really strange articulation on the ankle here for some of the figures. But again, they got pins. Pins are not really that cool, but I do, sometimes these figures are so hard to stand. I mean, how many times have you seen someone standing an action figure and all of a sudden they fall over because the feet are so small? So one important articulation point is this ankle right here. Now, 2000X figures didn't have an ankle rocker at all of any type. And all their ankles were too far forward like this. And so they were all standing, leaning back. So you had to take and aim the figure back like this. They all looked like they were just walked out of a bar and drunk, because they all had to aim back so far to make them work. And I had to take and freeze them all, or heat them up, and put their ankles back, and then freeze them back in position to make them stand straight. Because every single, especially Trapjaw, this big old heavy gun he had, and his feet rocked forward. He was just had his belly sticking out like that to counterbalance the gun on his arm. It just looked ridiculous. Ridiculous. Anyway, if you guys ever do 2000X figures, you'll see what I'm talking about. The ankles are all too far forward and there's no articulation there. So that was bad. So ankle articulation, yes. Toe articulation, not so much. Even G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe. They have a little too much articulation for my like. The double jointed elbow is not my favorite. But even they don't have the toe articulation. And being their feet are so small, it's a good thing they don't, because sometimes that toe articulation makes it so your figure keeps falling over, and it's kind of annoying. I remember not too long ago, like a week ago. This is when it all of a sudden annoyed me, was with this figure here. This figure here, he kept falling apart over and over and over again. And I couldn't get him to stand, trying to get him to stand inside this base right here. And his stupid toe articulation kept rolling forward on me because it was just a little too loose over and over again. And when it rolled forward, then he has less support holding him up, and the base of his stance is now just this little part of the foot, and it has a heel on it, and so now you even have less firmness on the ground. And so this is what set me off, was this figure here. Don't get me wrong, I like this figure, he's really cool, but the toe articulation, I'm so tempted just to put it where I want it and glue it and lose the articulation point, but you still have the yuckiness on top of the boot and the big old sides. So I don't know. Hold on, I gotta change my battery in my light. Here's some charged batteries. All right. There we go. So, again, this is the figure that sent me over the edge with the ankle articulation. And I remember right after the video was done, I'm like, I'm making a video on how I hate toe articulation, because it just drove me crazy trying to get this guy to stand in the video over and over and over again. Even now, he's got just a slight curve on there. It doesn't actually open all the way. It's like open, open, open. I mean, I'm going to have to probably even sand it right there before I glue it, just so he can get a good stance. Stand, man. I can't stand. See, it's just rocking on there. The toes are not even touching the ground. Look at that. Anyway, let's see what your guys' comments are. Let's see. O'Connor says, I don't think there is such a thing as too much articulation. Oh, yes, there is, man. I'm sorry to tell you. When they start to ruin the sculpt, it is not good. When they take a sculpt and they throw an articulation point right in the middle of the leg, and when you go to rotate it, like this here, there's no articulation point here. Perfect. Not needed. The legs move good enough. You don't need to twist it. You know, maybe something way up here could work. Double jointed knees, I'm okay with, no problem. But the double jointed elbows, you have these gaps right here. It just makes it look yucky. Yucky. Bicep twists, perfect. Even the shoulder pieces, those are okay too. That's fine. But when you have gaps that just look like they don't work, like this Spider-Man here, if you take and you rotate his leg, oh, this light's dying. I'm going to change this one too. Yeah, plug in. There we go. Last light. Okay, there we go. So when even you take and you rotate this leg, now all of a sudden the sculpt is off. And it just looks awful, because then if you're doing something, you're showing somebody, or you have them on your shelf, once you pose them with that one twisted, they need to figure out some way. And they did it actually with Thundercats. I forgot about that. They had a Lion-O that this muscle went up higher, and they had a regular, you know what? Let me go find that figure. I think it was Mumra had it too. So let me hold up. You guys can take a look at some of these cool figures here. Whoa, Spider-Man took a dive. Spooderman does whatever a spooder can. Oh, I got stuff in the way. There it is. I see it, I just can't get to it. All right, I got to it. Okay, So check this out. Hopefully it's in this box. Hopefully it is. It is in this box. Okay, so here is a Mum-Ra made by some company. I forgot who made it. And I wanted to make him taller, so I was going to make my own custom Mum-Ra. But if you take a look underneath here, the leg muscles are separate and they spin with the leg. Now it does look kind of weird at first, but then it's like, you know what? That is genius. Let me show you the tall version. Oh, here's the 5.5. So, where's his head? There it is. Put your head on, man. No toe articulation. So you can see right here, the whole leg actually spins with the muscle, so you don't break the sculpt. So when I actually made him taller, I just made little round pegs in here, 3D printed them and painted them to match. So you can see the difference in the height. Then I added the fur on top, new fur, different leg pieces here, and new head. I gave him this head here instead of this little beanie head, and then I put a green wash on it to match the color, just a slight green wash to change the color. And bada bing, bada boom, taller guy. Way easier to make, because you tried to make like Spooderman taller, then you'd have to actually match the muscle too, and it would look really weird. So I just hate when the muscles break like that in the figure thing. So even though I like that Spider-Man has tons of articulation, boot cut is perfect. I just hate when it ruins the sculpt right in the middle of the sculpt. All right, let's take out your guys' comments. I'm loving these companies just coming out in the figure game, telling Hasbro and Mattel and McFarlane that they aren't the only ones that can make great products. Yes, it is cool. Great figure, Ramen toys. Little on the expensive side, but I understand it's because the run's little. So that makes total sense. All right, here is, oh, this figure is so cool. Look at this. Bernice. And they did an excellent job on her. But again, no toe articulation, but still they have really good articulation. We got really nice double jointed knees that are just smoother than smooth. And then single jointed elbows that are just perfect. They close up far enough so she can grab her spear and toss it at people, but yet at the same time, you don't lose too much of the sculpt and still looks elegant. Now I wish they would have did a bicep cut. That's one thing that I wish they would have added to this, is that bicep cut. But other than that, it's still, and again, no thigh cut. They did not ruin the sculpt right here, because ruining the sculpt right there would have been just wrong, because this figure is sculpted so beautifully that would have just destroyed the whole entire sculpt. So these guys did an excellent job. Look how far the legs move up with the double joints. And they're just so smooth and tight. And it's just an excellent example of how a figure should be created, except for no bicep cut. But other than that, not too shabby. All right, let's take a look at the thing. Stand. The Thing. Now, does he have toe articulation? He does not. Now, if he did, I wouldn't hold it against them, because they could easily hide it inside the toes. If they did it right, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. He is dusty. You can see he's been sitting on my shelf a little too long. But, wow, his ankle articulation is really cool. You lose almost no sculpt value in that at all. Usually in the ankle articulation you have something lost there, but with the big giant cankles he has for ankles, that works really well. That's really cool. The knees, not so much, because they end up having this big old gap right there in the knees and gives it kind of a weird appearance. Elbows, single jointed and nice and rounded. Very cool. The arms, same way, or the hands. And of course, the head is one of the easiest ones. He has an interesting ab crunch going on there, but it does work. And again, they gave him a thigh cut, but this time they have shorts to separate it, so it works. That's a natural good thigh cut and color plastic change. So that is what I like. When they do a color plastic change and it makes sense, it's where the cloth starts and ends. That's the best kind of articulation points you can have. Here's a cool thing too. Let me jump back here. Is normally He-Man figures have a bicep cut, but notice this one does not. Instead, they cleverly put it right there in front of the armband, so it still has the same articulation effect, but it's where it cuts for the sculpt. And that is beautiful. Whenever you can fit articulation in where the sculpt is, that works really good. And again, this figure here, even though most of the Masters of the Universe had a thigh cut, actually way up here, because the low cut shorts, they decided to opt and go with the appearance was more important than the actual sculpt. And I like that sometimes when appearance makes more sense than the sculpt. All right, let me see. I need you guys to give me some what would look for a video review after the stream. So tell me, what those that are in favor of the toe articulation, tell me why. Give me some points you think that makes it a good articulation point. I've given lots of negatives and 2 positives. So tell me why you like toe articulation and why you think it's important. And while you're doing that, I'm going to look for that lame lion-o that I just got. Where did I toss him? That's messed up. I had that lion-o and I tossed him somewhere because I didn't really care for him. No, it's not going to work. Lion-o, where are you? I don't even know where I threw him at. That's bad. I was going to show you the upper thigh, how it drives me crazy. All right, let's get you guys' comments. Okay, Delexorian says, I can take it or leave it honestly. Toe articulation is the worst. It compromises the ability to stand. Yes! The toe articulation is only mandatory with Spider-Man. Nice. Connor says, unlike brown articulation, it's not a deal breaker. If it doesn't have it, not very necessary for me. But I like it. Toe and double jointed elbows. No, not the double jointed elbows. Let's see. He says, sorry all. I have to continue watching offline later. Okay. See you later, man. Mrs. wants me to go with her to the city and pick up her friend. Yeah. Be with your wife, man. Very important. She needs that protection. All right. Toe articulation. There was this movie that came out in the 80s, I think, maybe the 90s. It was a skater movie. I forgot, ice skating skater, not roller or skateboarding. And I remember in it, this lady kept saying toe pick the whole time because the guy she was teaching how to skate or whatever kept, falling, or I forget what it was. But I just think of that when I think of these stupid toes. Toe pick, toe pick. Anyway, it's not even much articulation to this one. It doesn't even do much. It's just in the way. And worse than that, the sculpt breaks on the bottom. See, look at that. It's not even rounded. Sorry, Ramen Toys. I love your figure, but this, if you sent me a new foot without that articulation, I would happily pop it off and put on the non-toe articulated boot, and you would hear me stop complaining. That'd be the end of my complaints. You told us how to fix the belt. I glued this on the side. His hat is held on with lots of poster putty. My guy is set, except for the toe. The toe! Even the double jointed elbows I can live with. It's not a deal breaker for me. I just don't like it. See, look how it looks. It's just totally flat across her now. Nobody's elbow is shaped like that. When you do the double jointed elbows, it just breaks the articulation or the look. All of a sudden, the aesthetic of it's not working right. And if you put it halfway, it's still not right. The elbow should stick out further. If someone did something really clever and made it so as you move this, at that point would move down at the same time, then it would be really cool. And it would rock, but that'd be too hard to do. I remember when I was a kid, I had these big gym figures, and they were the coolest thing ever because they had muscles that would flex. And as you would bend the arm, these plastic pieces would move inside the rubber sleeve and actually flex and make a bicep. It was so cool that they figured that out to actually bend and do a bicep. I don't know why they just didn't do that in almost every figure after that, because it's just such a cool feature. Now, I did see something like that with a Dragon Ball Z figure, but they did it on the outside. They didn't have it underneath rubber, so it looked really, really weird. But anyway, oh, look at this figure. Oh, Mythic Legends. Mythic Legions. They should call it Mythic Legends, especially these ones right here. This figure is so beautiful. It's just awesome. The head is a custom head that I got on Fleabay. But again, they have single jointed elbows here. Beautiful. They should have an upper cut. It could have fit perfectly right here where the band is, just like we saw with the classics. That would have been perfect. I don't know why they didn't go with that. And then let's check out her sculpt again. The legs are formed all the way. No weird cut up here. No boot cut in the middle of her thigh, or not thigh, but in her calf. And we have ankle articulation, single jointed knees, which are nicely formed. Some single jointed knees are really hideous, but these ones look really good, similar to Origins, where it's got a little thing coming straight up, and it keeps a nice curve to it when it bends. Even her elbows keep a really nice curve to it, so you don't have that weird flattening going on right here. So Mythic Legends does a really good job with their figures. Massively cool. This is one of my favorite figures now, I think, out of all my figures. She is so cool looking. I didn't think I was going to like her so much, but man, I surely do. That head just changed her all completely. All right. Origins. Origins, we got the ankle. The knee is covered. Brilliant. Brilliant. I love this knee articulation. It just looks good at any angle you put it at. You don't lose anything for forming and shaping. Elbow articulation, excellent job on that too. Look at that. Look at that. No matter how you put it, it looks aesthetic, except for they need to put a bicep articulation. Otherwise, it looks weird. And the shoulder articulation, also beautiful. And they have the strange angle going on. So as you go up, it goes smaller, like the original toy. Stand, man, stand. All right, let's check out your guys' stuff. Where can you find a vest like this? This vest came in a 2-part set, and it came with Prince Adam and He-Man. And if you click my link and then type in Comic-Con 2-pack, or maybe it's PowerCon 2-pack, He-Man, Prince Adam, you will see it. It is a little bit on the spendy side, but it is pretty cool. All right. I think that's it. I think I've complained enough. And it's funny is I was just telling my daughter today, it was last night, about how good our lives are. I mean, you think about it. I mean, like even something as simple as washing our clothes. We got a machine we throw it in. We don't have to sit there and wring it through the wringer and beat it on a rock or whatever else. Not needed. Especially in metal shoes. Not needed. You think about it, even these boots. If you bought a pair of these boots and you're wearing them, you could not move your toe up in these boots in real life. There would be no articulation for you either. They'd just be solid boots. Because boots don't bend like that. And if they do, you throw them away because they have worn out. So if your boots are bending like that, and you have steel toe boots especially, you're going to cut your toes off bending them that way. So, so articulation points where you can't actually even have them in real life. I gotta admit though, this knee is cool the way they did that. It's armored looking. It's kind of cool. Wow, even though it's double jointed, it does not move very far. That's so strange. Am I doing it right? Oh, I see. There's no cut in the back to raise it up. That's it. Magnetize me, Captain. There we go. All right. And again, no thigh cut. Good job. Let's take a look at the Marshal. I think he has a thigh cut. Yeah, he does. They gave him a thigh cut, but it's not that bad. He has bands at the same spot you can raise up and put right over the thigh cut. He's got so much extra garb on, the thigh cut's just fine. Hey, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Oh. I was done in by the toes. See, the toes are bent. He just fell forward on his own from those stinky toes. All right, let's stick that back in again. Okay, it is time to vote. Bum, bum, bum. I played Angel and Buffy. He does look like that guy. I could see that. I often wonder if they actually look at real people and use that for doing their sculpts. We've seen a lot of the Four Horsemen mimic people in real life. Like we have that one guy that's like Val Kilmer. It's kind of funny. Anyway, so it's like the Batman Val Kilmer. Flip shot. Okay, so time for the vote. And here is your choices. We're going to talk about just one articulation point. This whole video has been about the whole time, even though I know I've strayed quite a bit. And number one, toe articulation. Yay for all figures. Spider-Man excluded from this vote. Or no toe articulation. Number two. So go ahead and vote now. Toe articulation or no toe articulation? And we shall see which way the vote goes on this. Let's take a look here. Review Rio Blast articulations. Okay, I'll pull them out in a second. Silverhawk figure. Oh, I already read that one. It's not the toe articulation's fault. It's the angled boot. It's not flat to the surface. Val Kilmer played at Warfield. Charles says none. Carlos says nay. We're with you, Todd. Thanks, Luis. Cutler O'Connor gives a thumbs up. I'm guessing thumbs up means no toe articulation. Let me get Rio Blast out of here. Now this figure's been modified a little bit. We'll come back to the toes in a minute. So here is Rio Blast. And the way it's been modified, he doesn't have the fat armor anymore. I cut around it to give it so his arms can fit down of the way. And here's his articulation. He has ankle articulation. He has single jointed knees. He has no thigh cut here, but he does have a ball joint cut way up there, which works really good for the sculpt. He has a waist. And he has an ab crunch that I never use because it messes his armor up. Oh no! And then we have a shoulder articulation. We have a bicep cut. We have single jointed elbows. And I had to paint this brown on the inside because the pin color was this, which looked really dumb. So I painted it brown. And then we have his head doesn't move very much. This opens. His legs open, but I glued him shut. And that's about it. Oh, his hand moves too. So there is the articulation for Rio Blast. All right, back to the toes, so you guys can continue voting. Imperial says nah. No toe articulation. And what's crazy is it's a whole another tool being made for that. So you got to make a tool for the toe and for the pin and for the shoe. So you got 1, 2, 3 different pieces being built here as opposed to just a single piece for the shoe. So, and even his boots round up at the end on the toes, which does kind of stink. He does have a little harder standing because of that. Stand, man. So that you may have saw what the problem was that rounding. That's what I should do. I should steal a pair of Rio Blast boots and just stick them on them. Give them extra big feet. You know what? They're not that much difference in size. And I have a spare Rio Blast over here. I bet you I can modify. You know what? I got some spare Rio Blast boots actually sitting around in one of my cases already unused. That is an excellent idea. Let's see. I'll put the back on the feet so you guys can keep voting. Let's see what else we got here. Cutler O'Connell says, what I never was a fan of classics. That's how fat most of the figures look. And a horrible ab crunch. It does break the sculpt in an ugly way. Yes. Charles, my day today was pretty good. Yes, if Rio Blast comes out in December, that'd be cool. That would be cool. All right. Let me pull out the original Rio Blast. Where is my fat armor one? Here he is. So here's the fat armor one, and you can see how that armor looks. Now, I did leave it on this one to keep one original because his arms are going to be up anyway because I have his guns pulled. But you can see what the full Rio Blast in full action looks like. Blam, 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 blam. Blam, 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 blam. Blam, blam, blam. Stand, Mr. Blam Blam. All right. Let's see if anybody else wants to vote. It's not flat to the surface. All right. Well, I guess this is probably it. It's like everyone voted who wanted to vote. And I didn't see anybody really saying yes too much. Most of the votes were no. And I think that's all that I have. I've been thinking about this for way too long. Like I said, ever since I got this figure and it kept falling over, I couldn't get him to stand. I've been thinking about it. But I made is take a pair of Rio Blast boots, paint the tip silver on them, and just stick them on this guy and see if I can retrofit him to fit. Retrofit. All right. Well, until next time, good journey. And hopefully somebody in the toy company has heard us. No more toe articulation unless it's Spider-Man. Maybe a figure that's known for running like the Flash would make sense. But maybe not. Maybe just, instead of toe articulation, just give us, like they have alternate hands, give us an alternate foot with a toe already up in a perched position like he's running fast. That could even work. So if you want to pose him on your shelf with the alternate foot with the toes bent, that would look cool. That would look cool. Just pop off the foot, put the other one back on, and it has a bent toe ready to go for the run. We just need it on one foot, just on the right, so we can put that foot back on our shelf. That would look cool. Does Brave Star have how stand at the bottom of his boot? I don't know what you're asking, but there's the bottom of his boot right there. He does have a hole. Is that what you're asking? A hole? A hole. Yes. A hole for a stand at the bottom of his foot. He does have a hole. So you could use that to help prop him up so he doesn't keep falling over. Oop. Classics do too. Does she? Yep, she does too. Wow, look at that. Can't you plug a stand? Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, this tomahawk's kind of cool. It's funny, is before this side kept falling off and this side would stay on, and I still don't worry about gluing it, but now it keeps falling off. There's his blue. That's sharp. Woo! I didn't want to glue it on though, so I could change the angle of it depending on how I want it to sit on there. Like he's riding a horse or something. I don't want it to be in the way. See, if he's riding a horse, you have to tilt it back further so it's not in the way. You know what? I haven't even put him on a horse yet. Let's get a horse, of course. Let's get a classics horse first. You know what? I'm going to make a separate video for that. Oh, no. Oh, and her stuff fell off. Ah. This is a cool custom. I actually really like this custom I made. She is so cool looking. There we go. Back to normal. All right. I think that's it. I think we've covered the whole gambit. So until next time, good journey. And that is all that I have for now. You guys have seen a whole plethora of figures now. I will make a video later on the new Brave Star and try different horses on them. And that's it. Thanks, Charles. Okay, this is now officially another horse video. Yeah, I'll do it soon. I'll get my other horses out too. I still have some that are still unopened, and I should get them a horse anyway. But I'll have to go look online and see what color 3030 is and see if I can find a horse that color. All right, good journey. Bye now.